Hello, I'm Adeishe.
Hello, I'm Delphine, but everybody calls me Del.
When were you born, Del?
16th of October 1953.
Were you blind from birth?
Yes, I had too much oxygen. I was born 2 months and 10 days premature. I should have been born on Boxing Day, but I was born in October instead. So I was very small, only weighed about £3. You wouldn't believe that if you could see me now. So I was put in an incubator, and I was in the incubator for 3 months. And then when I came out, they discovered that I was totally blind, that it had damaged the optic nerve, the oxygen, and I would never see again. They couldn't even operate because operation wouldn't have done any good.
How did your parents react to the fact that you were blind?
My mother was very bitter. I don't think Dad was too bad about it. He was a lot kinder to me, but Mother was very bitter. She couldn't accept it, and I suffered a lot of verbal abuse and physical abuse from her. Most of my life, when I was at home, I was better. I was happier at school. So in the end, I had to leave home because she wasn't able to. Cause she didn't think that she'd be able to look after me. She thought I'd need looking after the rest of my life, and she was afraid she'd have to give up work to look after me when I left school and college. So she reacted with very bad bitterness.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had one brother and sister older than me, and I've got one brother and sister older than me, and I've got one brother and 2 sisters younger than me, and none of them have got any sight problems.
How did they react to your blindness?
I think they didn't like taking me anywhere with them. If they ever went out, they felt I showed them up, because obviously I'd need that bit more help. So I think they were all right to me on the whole. But when Mother was around, I felt they all ganged up. But as long as they didn't, they used to take me out rather reluctantly because Dad made them, but they didn't like it.
How old were you when you went away from the family?
I was 3. I went to what they used to call a sunshine home, which was a nursery school for blind children. It was a residential school. It was in King's Winford near Brierley Hill.
Were you aware that you were blind?
No, I don't think I was. It was other children that used to say to my big sister, "Is she blind?" And of course, I had no idea what that meant. So, no, I suppose I don't think I was aware of it until probably about 5 or 6 or something like that.
What was life like at the Sunshine School?
It was very good. We had nursery nurses who looked after us outside of school hours, and then we had teachers during school hours. They were very kind. It was the headmistress of the school that actually taught me to walk. For some reason, I couldn't or wouldn't walk until I was nearly 5. And it was the headmistress of the school that actually taught me to walk. And then we learned, little ways of being independent, like learning to dress ourselves, and wash ourselves and things like that. So, it was, as I say, they were very kind, and I really loved it there, and I was really upset when I had to leave, which was when I was almost 7.
Did you have your own room, or were you in a dormitory with other children?
I was in a dormitory with other children, and we used to talk. Each one had their own beds. We used to talk at night and get into trouble. Perhaps the nurses used to come and give us a wallop for keeping everybody else awake. But we had dormitories.
Did you make any friends?
I did. I think one girl I was quite friendly with while I was there was a little Geordie girl called Kathleen, and there was also another girl called Wendy. We had quite a few friends, 1 or 2 enemies as well.
Did you have any visitors come to see you while you were there?
Ooh, I I don't really. Oh yeah, I think I remember one Sunday, Mum and Dad and I think it was brother and sister came to visit me in the afternoon. Didn't have many visitors, but I do remember that.
Did you have any holidays? Did you go home for holidays?
Yes, we did go home for holidays, and I absolutely dreaded it. I used to cry because I didn't want to go home.
What happened when you left the Sunshine School?
I went on to Lickey Grange, which it was a school on the old Birmingham Road just outside Bromsgrove.
How long were you there and what was it like?
I was there for 11 years. I used to say I hated it. We used to call it a dump, a prison, all sorts of things. But actually, I'm looking back now, I think it was a very good school. Because you always hate your school when you're there, but you know, when you look back, and I think, well, I'm glad I went there. Yeah, it was really good. And as I say, it had its difficult times, but I don't think I'd have gone anywhere else.
What subjects did you do at Lickey Grange?
We did the 3 R's, you know, reading, writing, arithmetic, as we used to call it then. English, geography, physical education, PE, or PT it used to be, later became PE, domestic science, can't think of it. So it was most of the things that they do in sighted schools, really.
How did you learn to read and write? Using
Braille, which is a combination of 6 dots. Which different dots represent different letters, and you read it with your fingers. And we also had special machines for writing Braille as well. So that was how we learnt to read.
What was your favourite subject?
I think I enjoyed English and religious education.
Do you remember any of the teachers?
I think I remember them all. I remember one in particular was I think a lady called Miss Cudmore. She was my first teacher when I was in the infants, and she was very good. I mean, I didn't do a lot of actually Braille with her. I think we mainly played with toys, but I think I remember her for her strong Christian faith. But I also remember a teacher called Miss Chew, I was only in Miss Cudmore's class for a term, but I remember Miss Chew, who was quite strict. And one day, when I first moved into her class, we had a maths lesson, and she wanted me to count how many staples were on cards and add them up. Well, she left her pen on the desk next to me, so I found this pen and scribbled on one of the cards and got wrapped over the knuckles with the pen. So that was my first day in Miss Chew's class.
Did you take any exams while you were at school?
I did CSE, which was Certificate of Secondary Education, in English and religious education. I got a grade 4 in English and grade 2 in RE.
You were growing up in the 1960s, so were you aware of the changes that were in society?
I think I'm going to be a little bit naughty and say I remember the miniskirts. Yeah, I remember them. I always wanted one, but anyway, yeah, I remember the miniskirts, and I remember all the skinhead. Well, because that was towards the early 70s, the skinhead culture and things like that. And I can certainly remember the Beatles. I think that with the Beatles, I think everybody was mad on them, and I sort of went off them. Because I think everybody else was mad on them and I got a bit fed up with them. But one of my favourite groups at that time was a group called Herman's Hermits. From Manchester they were. And I remember when I think I was 11 at the time, and the lead singer, a guy called Peter Noon, was only about 17. And yeah, I think I remember having an absolute crush on him. And also I used to like another band from Manchester called Freddie and the Dreamers. I was Cliff Richard, who's from the opposite end of the country, and also I used to like some of the American groups. I think one of my favourite singers actually was a guy called Roy Orbison, who sadly passed away about 23 years ago. And I thought he had a song out called It's Over. I was 10 at the time, and I remember that was really one of my sort of favourite songs from the 60s. And so it was group band, because there weren't bands then, they were groups. We always referred to them as groups. But we used to actually play when I was at school. We used to play at being pop stars' wives, you know. But my crazes changed from one pop star to another every so often. I think Adam Faith was one of my favourites, and so of course I was Mrs. Faith for a while. Yeah, we used to play at being pop stars' wives, or sometimes we'd make up stories about going out with them. And I can remember one of the girls at school told us about a competition. It was in our local newspaper. That you had to. It was on the lid, I think, of a label of a particular hairspray, and you had to answer 6 questions as to why you liked this particular pop singer. Well, of course, we all wanted to take part in this competition, and of course I did. So I wanted to give 6 reasons why I liked Herman's Hermits, and I was telling the girls in my dormitory about it, and one of the girls said, "Delphine," she said, "you're too young." She said, "You'd look silly going out like that." Because if you won the competition, you could go out with your favourite pop star, you know. Yeah. I can remember there was a singer called Frank Highfield. You know, he used to yodel, if you remember. And, well, for those who can remember. And I remember he was on a panto. It was Mother Goose, and I remember being ill and I couldn't go. And then when I got better, and all the other girls were telling me they'd actually met him and he gave them a kiss, and I missed that. So one great regret in my life is that I never had a kiss from Frank Highfield.
Where did you go after Lickey Grange?
I went to the Queen Alexandra College, which was an assessment centre for the blind in Harborne. What it was an assessment centre for school leavers. Oh, incidentally, I'm actually not from Birmingham. I was born in Leicester. Anyway, I went to the Queen Alexandra College, and we were assessed to see whether we'd be good at getting a job when we left or not.
Are you still in contact with your parents at this point?
We used to have to write letters home. That was when I was actually at school. We used to have to write letters home, and not many of us were on the phone then. So. It wasn't until sort of the 70s and 80s that more people had phones in their homes. But one of the lessons on the school curriculum was writing letters to your parents and of course them writing back, which they did.
How did the Queen Alexandra College assess you?
Well, they got you doing different things like I'll try and think, assembling. One of the things we had to do was to put hairpins in bags, and then put 2 cards in the bag. 2 cards in the bag, put hairpins between them, take the 1 card out, and then somebody else would seal the bag, and they'd go to shops, different shops or wherever they were meant to go. Another thing they used to do was sewing, which I wasn't very good at, basket work. Also, what we used to call pre-engineering, which was assembling things like link mats, the big industrial mats that you get in front of big buildings for people to wipe their feet on. We used to make those. I quite enjoyed that. I was even allowed to drill holes in the rubber links, and that used a system of heat. Also, we did domestic science, also written work, English and things like that, and telephony, typing. So yeah, that was how they assessed us.
Did they decide you had to be independent?
No, I stayed at the college for a year, and then I think they felt that I wasn't that capable of independence at that time. So I was moved on to a different place. Normally we were only allowed to stay at the college for a year, but unless you went into the engineering department, which most of the boys did and 1 or 2 of the girls, and then you did training for 2 years.
Where did you go to next?
To the Elizabeth Gunn Centre, which is attached, at that time it was attached to the college. It was a building a very short distance away, but you could easily cross from the college to the centre. It was that close, and that is a place for blind people who have other disabilities, physical disabilities and also learning disabilities.
Where were you living at this time?
Well, while I was at Queen Alexandra College, there was a hostel for the girls, so I stayed there. But when I left Queen Alexandra College, it was decided that I'd better not go back home again to Leicester. So I came to... the Elizabeth Gunn Centre was a day centre, and I was living with two other blind ladies, in a bungalow which was just a couple of houses down the road from the Queen Alexandra College, and we were looked after by a retired couple.
What were the names of this couple and how did they look after you?
The couple were George and Zilla Young. They were sort of in the 70s at that time, and they were very good. But of course, being from that sort of generation, which would have been born in the early 1900s, they didn't really understand blindness as we understand it now. So the lady tended to do more for you than she'd even run your bath for you or wash your hair for you. I think it was because obviously she wanted you to look nice and things like that, but she and you weren't allowed to. I wasn't even allowed to make a cup of tea or anything like that. I did it once and got told off for it. So she was the sort of person that literally mothered you and thought that you weren't really capable of doing anything. But that wasn't her fault. It was her generation that thought it at that time.
Did you have a social life?
Yeah, not much of one at that time. I did go to a Pentecostal church on a Sunday in Hockley, which is, of course, is in the Jewellery Quarter. And I did join one or two things, evening activities at the centre, which was something called a long cane club, which for people who use the sort of cane that I've got with a rubber grip, and it's a lot longer than the old white canes that we used to use. And they had a lot of social activities then. Different people came to speak. It was held on the last Tuesday of the month in the Elizabeth Gunn Centre, because all the service users went home at the end of the day. So they opened one of the rooms on this Tuesday evening for our meetings. Also, the centre used to have what was called a Swan Club, which was named after one of the managers whose name was Charlie Swan. And they used to play all sorts of games, and also tea was provided. So that was usually 2 Tuesdays in the month. So yeah, I had quite a limited social life, but I suppose in those days it was better than nothing.
Are you still at the Elizabeth Gunn Centre, or what do you do now?
Yeah, I'm still at the Elizabeth Gunn Centre. The centre used to do work for different factories, but then I think because of the fear of sort of exploitation at that time, because they weren't paid the proper wage, they were just paid a pittance. That stopped. So now we do we take part in activities. Some people go swimming, horse riding. Some people go to do something called hydrotherapy. Also, we have something called current affairs, which we call news and views. That's on a Monday. Creative art on a Friday, which is listening to vintage radio programmes. We have a drama group on a Thursday, a Christian fellowship group on a Friday, a geography session on a Wednesday, IT, some Tuesdays and singing as well. So there's not a lot going on a Monday afternoon, but yeah, there is quite a lot that goes on now. So I just take part in whatever's going.
How have people reacted to your blindness?
In different ways. Some people have accepted it, like guys at my church. Some of them have. I belong to a group that, you know, and I give as good as I get with them. Some people react with fear, I think. They don't talk to you because they're afraid of they might say the wrong thing. And some people treat you as if you're not quite right up there. You know, some people actually tend to talk down to you a bit. I've been talked down to as if I was a child of about 5 or 6. But, you know, I've learnt to rise above that now. I don't, you know, I think some blind people will tell sighted people off for doing that. But I think that causes them even more fear. I think you need to just show them gently that you don't need to be sort of spoken to as if you're not quite right up top. And people don't need to be afraid of you because, you know, you're going to bite them. You know, I think if people react normally to me, I can react normally to them. You know, if they can take a positive attitude towards my blindness, I can take a positive attitude towards them.
Well, I've really enjoyed speaking to you.
Oh, thank you very much, and I've enjoyed telling you a bit about myself and about my disability. I hope I haven't given too many negatives, and I want, you know, I'm hoping that I can leave you guys with a positive note, rather than you thinking, oh, you know, well, she's a right miserable or so-and-so. No, I just hope that I've given you something positive to think about, really. But thank you very much for listening.